one of Jesus's essential invitations is that we lay down our lives, and that we do it in relation to our gifting, I think, in relation to the needs of the world at this time. And I think that there's a great explosion occurs when our gifting meets the deepest needs of our time.
Welcome to the Jesus Calling podcast. Today's guests have discovered, through time and testing, how to find joy amidst difficult circumstances and bring that joy to a hurting world. Author and speaker Matthew Kelly and nonprofit leader Tammy Bullock. For decades, Australia native Matthew Kelly has tried to meet God's people where they are and encourage them to move toward where God is calling them. He's written more than 30 books with the aim of inspiring people, including his newest called Rediscover the Saints. And in 2009, he founded Dynamic Catholic, an online community and resource center looking to give people help and hope. Today, Matthew tells us how it's easy to find God in the ordinary and why living in holy moments are more attainable than living a holy life.
Hi, I'm Matthew Kelly. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a husband. I am a father, a son, a brother. I grew up in Sydney, Australia, and I live here in the United States now. So growing up in Australia was a fabulous experience. I have 7 brothers, so I'm the fourth of 8 boys. It's a big family, lots of fun, lots of sports. What sport? Every sport, any sport. Probably a very competitive environment in lots of ways, but also a very loving environment. You know, I've tried to deconstruct sort of the values that my parents aspired and tried to instill into me and my brothers. What they gave us was a very human foundation, a very strong grounding in hard work, sort of as an ethic, as a value. You know, honesty, always tell the truth. When they're teaching us about Jesus, when they're teaching us about spirituality, it meshed very well with that sort of those very basic human foundations. I grew up in the Catholic tradition, and so my context for Christianity is Catholicism, and I started Dynamic Catholic in 2009, and it was in response to the fact that, there are more than 70 million Catholics in America. In 2009, there were 30 million Catholics not attending Sunday Mass, and there just so many things were happening, closing churches, closing schools, going in the wrong direction, society going in the wrong direction. Humanity is broken and messy. Things are a mess here. Everybody knows it. You don't have to be Catholic to work that out. What do we do with this mess? Because the collateral damage is real people and their lives and their families and their marriages. And if they're going to experience Christianity in the context of Catholicism, how do we make that a powerful experience, a transformative experience? How do we come up with a model that takes a faith community from a place of survival and mediocrity to a place of thriving excellence? I think some of my friends thought I was absolutely crazy when I started Dynamic Catholic, because by now I'm just married. I had my first child, but it's been a great journey, and it's been a lot of challenges, but so many people's lives have been touched and transformed. The people of our age are spiritually hungry. This is actually starving to death spiritually, regardless of what tradition they were raised in or what tradition they are practicing. They're absolutely hungry. And I think that manifests most in an unspoken hope. I think quietly, somewhere deep inside, they hope there's another path than the path that the world is offering them. Because they know that the path the world is offering them is bankrupt. People often will question my Christianity, and Why is that important to you? And then all this sort of thing. And I say to them, particularly people, non-believers, I'll say to them, listen, even if you could absolutely prove to me that Jesus didn't die on a cross, didn't rise from the dead. I mean, historically, we know he existed, so you can't prove to me that that never happened. But even if you could prove to me that he didn't exist, he didn't die on the cross, didn't rise from the dead, I still believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is the best way to live. That's a good foundation for me to come back to sometimes, especially during times of discouragement or doubt, which we all experience, and I don't think we talk about that anywhere near enough in the church. But this is the best way to live. I think it's very important that we monitor our joy, that we stay attentive to our joy. And of course, in Paul, we find sort of the great champion of joy, which is his central theme from prison. Paul's central theme from the squalor is a theme of joy. I think is a profound, very powerful lesson, because I think we attach ourselves in our society today to a joy that is dependent on substance or circumstance. It's easy to be happy, in the Bahamas in January, laying by the pool. The real test becomes maintaining our joy in the midst of suffering. And another powerful moment for me was my first diagnosis of cancer. I've had cancer 3 times, all unrelated, 3 different types of cancer, which is strange, a little strange, rare. I remember coming out of the doctor's office. I had cancer, and like my head was spinning, my ears were ringing, and the whole world goes on, the whole world goes on. Nobody knows you just got told you got cancer. Person in the elevator doesn't know that. The person and parking attendant doesn't know that just happened. The world just keeps going on. And I think that was a very powerful lesson for me, because it drew me very close to that concept that everybody you meet is carrying a heavy load. Everybody you meet is carrying a heavy burden. And we forget that. And when we forget that, we lose compassion. We dehumanize many of our conversations, relationships. But if we're mindful that everyone we meet is carrying a heavy burden, we treat people with a different gentleness, or with a different respect. And I think that's very powerful. And that was probably the biggest lesson I learned from my first bout with cancer, is the idea that everyone has stuff going on inside of them, and you have no idea what it is. And it's not that you need to know what it is, but that you should assume that they do have something going on inside of them, and that as a result we should be gentle with each other, and part of that is learning to be gentle with ourselves. So I first encountered Jesus Calling as a gift from someone who became a great spiritual mentor to me, and I was fascinated with it. I'd read it all the time, and I would read the reflections for the day, but I would very often jump around as well, and or just open up at different times of the day and see what the Spirit was saying to me. The reflection for March the 14th: do not hesitate to receive joy from me, for I bestow it on you abundantly. The more you rest in my presence, the more freely my blessings flow into you. In the light of my love, you are gradually transformed from glory to glory. It is through spending time with me that you realize how wide and long and high and deep is my love for you. Sometimes the relationship I offer you seems too good to be true. I pour my very life into you, and all you have to do is receive me. In a world characterized by working and taking, the admonition to rest and receive seems too easy. There is a close connection between receive and believing. As you trust me more and more, you're able to receive me and my blessings abundantly. Be still and know that I am God. I think the way the passage resonates with me is a twofold. There's a beautiful personal nature to these reflections. And I think the power of it and the success it's had in touching people's hearts is deeply linked to that personal nature of these reflections, because we talk about like having a personal relationship with God, but it's hard to connect to that sometimes, and I think this effortlessly creates that connection, creates a bridge. The other thing that sort of resonated as I was reading this and cast me back to sort of my first experience of it is how very positive the reflections are, and how encouraging they are at every turn. Even when they're challenging us, they're incredibly supportive and encouraging, and we're being encouraged here so that we can go out and encourage other people. And there's 7 billion people, give or take, on the planet today. 6.9 billion of them probably will go to bed hungry tonight just for one honest word of encouragement. And so it's a very real way that we can collaborate with God by encouraging the people in our lives, or the people that cross our paths. As a Catholic, the idea of writing a book about the saints is a no-brainer, but it's an idea that I have resisted, for more than 25 years. I have often thought, world doesn't need another book about the saints. Most of them are short biographies of the saints or quotes or things like that. But some friends really challenged me to look at it, and the biggest lie in the history of Christianity is the lie we tell ourselves that holiness is not possible. And the antidote to that is what I call the holy moment, and the idea that, if we go out today and we just ask God, all right, God, let's create a holy moment. In any situation, if we just turn to God and say, God, what do you want me to do right now? And if we just set aside self-interest, what we feel like doing, what we want to do, and we just do what we feel God is calling us to do in that moment, we've created a holy moment. And these people we call saints, which is complicated because the word has carried many, many definitions throughout the history of Christianity, and I think it's worth talking about that in a minute. But the idea that these saints, they didn't live holy lives. Okay, they lived holy moments. And between the holy moments, there was some very dark, messed up, twisted stuff going on in the lives of the saints. Their humanity was very real. They overwhelmed those dark moments by creating more and more holy moments. But their life wasn't one action. And I think the danger is we sit back and think, oh, he lived a holy life or she lived a holy life. No, they lived, 10 million holy moments or whatever, but their life wasn't one action. What is a saint? I think is an important question for us to ask ourselves as a church, and what role does it play? Paul addresses the various communities, or the people in the various community, as saints, and there is a very specific definition of a canonized saint within traditional Christianity, but the church has always held the idea that, okay, these are just some. Most of the saints, they come and go anonymously through life. Nobody's ever going to canonize them. Nobody's ever going to say, that person was a saint, or, she was a saint, whatever. But that we all are all called to be saints in the way that Paul envisioned it in his letters, I think is a concept that needs to be rediscovered, because it leads us to understand that we have a part to play in the revitalization of our society and the renewal of our world. I think that we do tend to put people up on a pedestal. We do that for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the reason we tell ourselves is, oh, we respect this person, or we respect the work they've done or they're doing. But I think one of the hidden reasons we do it is to separate them from us, to say, okay, they're different than me, and in doing so, abdicate ourselves of the responsibility to do what they're doing or to live at the level they're trying to live. So I think that's one piece of what we're talking about. It's very important to me that my reader understands that, I absolutely do not have it all together. I absolutely do not have all the answers, and that it's not about that. That it's about being committed to the journey, and how committed am I today? Because I could be 100% committed yesterday, but if I'm not committed at all today, then I've lost something. And I think that both as Christians and as a society, we need to give our leaders permission to be human, because we'll see an astounding new authenticity if we do. I think modern Christianity, many Christians believe that the culture has become too strong, it's become impenetrable, that there's absolutely nothing we can do, and that's defeatism. It certainly isn't a spirit of Christianity. And then there's a tendency to say, okay, well, we just need God to directly intervene. We need the second coming, or we need God to directly intervene, and that isn't the spirit of Christianity either, or even the spirit of God's relationship with man throughout the Judeo-Christian tradition has always been one of collaboration. God wants to collaborate with us, and that collaboration is beautiful. And I think that, we see that with Jesus entering the world. Jesus could have just entered the world, but God chose to collaborate with Mary in that, and then there's these all great collaborations throughout the history of our tradition between God and humanity. And I think God's inviting us to one of those collaborations again now. And the question is, will we accept the invitation?
To learn more about Dynamic Catholic, please visit dynamiccatholic.com. Matthew's book, Rediscover the Saints, is available from your favorite book retailer today.